The empty observation room felt colder than usual. Ambassador Rebecca Ockhaffer watched the holographic display showing the Galactic Council chamber, where hundreds of alien delegates discussed matters that would never include Earth. Her fingers traced the edge of the viewing screen as another human petition disappeared from the agenda without even a mention. 40 years. 4 entire decades of sending messages, requests, and formal applications into the void of space. Every single transmission had been acknowledged with the same automated response. Your petition has been received and will be reviewed in accordance with standard integration protocols. Thank you for your patience. Patience. Rebecca almost laughed at the word. How much patience did the galaxy expect from a species that had gone from riding horses to walking on their moon in less than a century? She watched as the Drawl Collective representative, a towering being covered in iridescent scales, proposed new trade regulations that would affect 70 systems. None of those systems included Sol. The Hiveborn Assembly added their support through a chorus of clicking sounds that the translation system rendered as enthusiastic agreement. Still no mention of the humans waiting in the outer reaches of civilized space. The door behind her hissed open. Rebecca did not turn around. She knew who it would be. They tabled it again, she said quietly. Her assistant, a young woman named Patricia Nwasu, stepped beside her. Without discussion, the council clerk said there were more pressing matters. More pressing than a Deathworld species with fusion drives and quantum communications, asking nicely to join galactic society. Patricia handed her a data pad. Director Howard wants to speak with you. Secure channel, he said it is urgent. Rebecca took the pad and moved to the private communication booth at the back of the observation room. The quantum link established instantly, and Director Howard Chen's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but his eyes held something Rebecca had not seen in years. Hope, maybe, or perhaps just determined anger. Ambassador, Howard said without preamble, how would you feel about getting their attention in a way they cannot ignore? Rebecca leaned forward. I am listening. We have been playing by their rules for 40 years. We filled out their forms. We followed their protocols. We waited in their lobbies like good little primitives asking permission to sit at the adult table. Howard's jaw tightened. What if we stopped asking and started showing them exactly what humans are capable of when we decide to solve a problem? The Council has made it clear that aggressive action will result in immediate sanctions. Who said anything about aggression? Howard smiled, and it was not a kind expression. It was the smile of someone who had found a loophole in a contract. I am talking about communication. They will not read our messages. Fine, we will write one they cannot possibly miss. Rebecca felt her pulse quicken. What exactly are you proposing? Project Painted Sky. We are going to make the stars themselves spell out our message across every major population center in Council space, simultaneously, in all 847 official languages. For a long moment, Rebecca could only stare at the screen. That is impossible. For most species, yes. For humans, Howard shrugged. We landed 12 colonies in systems the Council said were uninhabitable. We built a merchant fleet that rivals most mid-tier civilizations. We turned Luna into an industrial complex that produces more ships per year than the entire Drawl Collective. We have been busy while they ignored us. How illegal is this going to be? Spectacularly, Howard admitted. But here is the thing. We are not going to harm anyone. We are not going to threaten anyone. We are just going to make absolutely certain that every being in Council space wakes up one morning and sees our message written in the sky above their homeworld. Hard to ignore a species that can coordinate stellar manipulation across 200 light years. Rebecca thought about the empty seats in the Council chamber. She thought about the automated responses. She thought about her predecessor, who had spent 20 years sending the same polite requests into the darkness before retiring in defeat. When do we start? She asked. Howard's smile widened. The engineers at Luna Station are already building the satellites. Captain Torres and his people are moving into position. We just need you to keep playing the patient diplomat for another 3 months. Can you do that? I have been patient for 5 years. What is another 3 months? Perfect. And Rebecca, when this happens, the council is going to be very interested in speaking with you. You might want to prepare some remarks about how humanity values peaceful communication and creative problem solving. The transmission ended. Rebecca sat in the booth for several minutes, processing what she had just agreed to. Somewhere in the Luna shipyards, human engineers were building something the galaxy had never seen. Across the frontier, human ships were moving into carefully calculated positions, and here in the council station, she would continue to sit in empty rooms and watch proceedings that excluded Earth. But not for much longer. She returned to the observation chamber where Patricia waited. The Galactic Council continued their debate about trade routes and cultural exchange programs. They spoke of harmony and cooperation between species. They discussed the sacred duty of advanced civilizations to guide younger ones toward enlightenment. None of them mentioned the human who had been trying to join that conversation for 40 years. Rebecca watched them and smiled. In 3 months, these same delegates would be scrambling to explain to their homeworlds why the sky itself carried a message from the species they had dismissed as irrelevant. In 3 months, the galaxy would learn what happens when you ignore a Deathworld species that really wants to talk. The observation screen flickered as another agenda item appeared. Another proposal that did not include Earth. Another decision made without human input. Rebecca checked her chronometer and began counting down the days. Dr. Amara Okonkwo had seen many strange requests in her 15 years at Luna Station, but this one made her read the specifications 3 times before believing they were real. The message had arrived on a secure channel during her night shift, when the main construction bays hummed with automated assembly lines, and most of the human crew slept in their quarters. She sat in her office overlooking the vast expanse of lunar manufacturing facilities, watching robotic arms weld hull plates while the specifications for Project Painted Sky glowed on her screen. "They want us to build what?" her assistant engineer Robert Kamani asked when she called him in. "Resonance satellites, thousands of them, each one capable of harmonizing with stellar radiation patterns and creating coordinated light displays visible from planetary surfaces." Robert leaned over her shoulder to read the technical requirements. His eyes grew wider with each line. "This is not a defense project. No, it is a message delivery system. A very expensive message delivery system." Robert scrolled through the power requirements. "These satellites will need to synchronize across hundreds of star systems simultaneously. The quantum entanglement network alone will cost more than our entire annual budget." Amara pulled up another file. "We have authorization to reallocate resources from every non-essential project. Director Howard signed off personally. This has priority over everything except life support and colony resupply missions." What message is worth this much effort? One that the Galactic Council cannot ignore. Amara stood and walked to the window overlooking the construction bays. How long will it take to build them? Robert ran quick calculations on his data pad. If we dedicate all available fabrication units and pull workers from other projects, 60 days for production, another 20 for testing and deployment. That assumes nothing goes wrong. Make it 75 days total. I want triple redundancy on every system. Understood. Robert paused at the door. Are we really going to make the stars spell out words? We are going to make them spell out words in 847 different languages simultaneously. Now get started. We have a lot of work to do. The next weeks passed in organized chaos. Assembly lines that usually produced cargo haulers and mining equipment switched to satellite construction. Engineers who specialized in fusion cores found themselves learning about stellar wind harmonics. The entire station ran on double shifts as thousands of sleek satellites took shape in the fabrication bays. Meanwhile, out in the frontier regions of human space, Captain David Torres sat in the command room of his cargo ship Meridian Runner and studied a star map that looked like a three-dimensional spider web. Each intersection point marked a location where a human vessel needed to be in exactly 75 days. "You understand this seems completely insane," said his first officer, a woman named Gloria Reyes who had served with him for 8 years. "Insane is spending 40 years asking politely and being ignored," David replied. He highlighted another position on the map. "The freighter Armstrong's Dream can cover this sector. They are already hauling supplies to the Kepler colonies." "And what exactly are we supposed to do when we reach these positions?" "Wait, deploy satellites, activate them on command, then watch the sky and enjoy the show." Gloria studied the coordinates he had marked. "Some of these locations are deep in Council space. We are talking about human ships operating in sectors where we technically do not have legal access. Technically, we do not have legal access to most of civilized space because the Council will not grant us proper trading licenses." David leaned back in his chair. "But they also do not actively patrol the frontier regions. We have been moving through these areas for years. The Galactic Patrol notices us about as much as they notice cosmic dust. This time they might pay attention." "That is rather the point." Over the next 2 months, dozens of human ships began their quiet migration to predetermined coordinates. Independent traders, colony supply vessels, even a few civilian yachts owned by wealthy Earth families looking for adventure. Each ship carried a small cargo of satellites and specific activation codes. The Galactic Patrol did notice the unusual movement patterns, but their response was predictably dismissive. Patrol Commander Helix, a methane-breathing Viren who had been monitoring human activities for a decade, filed a routine report noting increased traffic from Sol's system. "Humans are always scurrying about," he told his second-in-command. "It is their nature. They cannot sit still. Last year they tried to establish a colony in the frost reaches. The year before that they sent an expedition to map dark matter streams. Now they are probably chasing some other impossible dream. Should we investigate? For what purpose? They are not violating any regulations. They just move around more than sensible species." Helix returned to more important matters, like monitoring actual threats to Council security. Back on Luna Station, Amara watched as the final satellite rolled off the assembly line. 73 days of constant work had produced 6,215 satellites, each one tested to perfection. The quantum entanglement network had been established and verified. The stellar radiation harmonics had been calculated down to the smallest decimal point. She sent a message to Director Howard. "Production complete, all units functional, ready for deployment." His reply came within minutes. "Excellent work, Doctor. Begin dispersal operations. Activation in 72 hours." Amara gathered her exhausted team in the main observation deck. "We did it. Every satellite is perfect. Every calculation is verified. When we activate this network, it will be the largest coordinated technological operation in human history." Robert raised his coffee cup. "To making the galaxy notice us." "To making them listen," Amara corrected. The satellites launched in waves, carried by automated drones to rendezvous points where human ships waited. Captain Torres and his fellow captains received their precious cargo and began final positioning. Across 200 light-years of space, humans moved into place like pieces on a chessboard that the galaxy did not know it was playing. 72 hours until activation. 72 hours until the Council learned that patience has limits, even for humans trying to be diplomatic. The annual Convergence Gala was considered the most important social event in galactic politics. Representatives from 847 species gathered in the grand halls of Centrum, the Council homeworld, to celebrate another year of peaceful cooperation and cultural exchange. The air shimmered with translation fields as beings of every imaginable shape and composition mingled beneath crystalline chandeliers that had been grown rather than built. Ambassador Rebecca HFY stood in the observer section, a small alcove reserved for representatives of non-member civilizations. From here, she could see the main floor where actual delegates laughed and conducted the real business of galactic governance. She wore her formal diplomatic uniform, dark blue with Earth's insignia on the shoulder. Several aliens had glanced her way throughout the evening, but none approached. Observers were meant to observe, not participate. Another year of being decorative furniture, Patricia whispered beside her. Rebecca checked her chronometer. 11 minutes until midnight, Centrum Standard Time. 11 minutes until Project Painted Sky activated and changed everything. Patience. We have been patient for 40 years. We can manage 11 more minutes. On the main floor, the Drawl Collective Ambassador was telling an animated story to a cluster of delegates. His iridescent scales flashed with bioluminescent patterns that the translation system interpreted as humor. Other species joined the group, drawn by the obvious entertainment. This was how real alliances formed, over drinks and stories and shared laughter in rooms that humans were allowed to watch but never enter. The Hiveborn Assembly Representative, a collective intelligence housed in thousands of small insectoid bodies, flowed past the observer section without acknowledgement. They moved like liquid, each tiny component perfectly coordinated with all the others. Rebecca had tried to establish communication with them 3 years ago. They had responded with a mathematical equation that translated to insufficient complexity detected. 5 minutes to midnight. Rebecca noticed increased activity near the main entrance. More delegates arriving, fashionably late. A group of crystalline beings from the Shardmind Collective entered, their faceted bodies refracting the light into rainbow patterns. Behind them came representatives from younger civilizations, species that had been granted provisional membership within their first century of space travel. Earth had been trying for 4 decades and could not even get a preliminary hearing. 2 minutes. The grand timepiece at the center of the hall began its midnight chime. It was a marvel of engineering, using controlled gravity pulses to create sound waves that every species present could perceive in their own way. As the chimes rang out, delegates raised their various appendages in a toast to another year of galactic harmony. Rebecca watched the chronometer tick down to 0. Nothing happened. The delegates continued their celebrations. The crystalline chandeliers sparkled. The translation fields hummed. For a terrible moment, Rebecca wondered if the entire project had failed. If 75 days of preparation and centuries of combined human effort had produced nothing but expensive satellites floating uselessly in space. Then someone screamed. It was a Drawl delegate near the viewing wall. Her scales had gone pale with shock as she stared at the holographic feed from her homeworld. Other delegates turned to look. More screens activated throughout the hall as beings checked communications from their planets. The sky above Centrum began to glow. Rebecca walked to the nearest window and looked up. The night sky of the Council homeworld rippled with colors that had not been there moments before. Green and blue and gold auroras danced across the atmosphere, but these were not random patterns. They formed shapes, letters, words. Humanity, RQSTS, and audience. The message hung in the sky, written in Centrum's primary language. As Rebecca watched, it shimmered and changed, cycling through different scripts. Each time it transformed, it maintained perfect readability for whatever species was reading it. Chaos erupted in the grand hall. Delegates shouted into communication devices. Security officers rushed toward the observation section. The hive-born assembly scattered into defensive formations. The Drawl ambassador stood frozen, her scales flashing through colors that indicated extreme distress. "What is the meaning of this?" Patrol Commander Hillix appeared in front of Rebecca, his breathing apparatus hissing with agitation. "What have you done?" Rebecca remained calm. "Earth has been trying to schedule a meeting with the Council for 40 years. Our messages went unanswered. Our petitions were ignored. This seemed more efficient. This is an act of war. This is a message. We are harming no one, threatening no one. We are simply ensuring that our request for dialogue is visible." More security forces arrived. Rebecca found herself surrounded by armed guards from a dozen different species. Patricia moved closer, her hand near the emergency beacon on her belt, but Rebecca shook her head slightly. This was all part of the plan. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the hall. It showed the Science Directorate Command Center, where analysts were frantically studying data streams. One of them, a crystalline being named Crystalex, rotated geometric patterns through the air as she processed information. "The phenomenon is occurring simultaneously across all major population centers within 200 light-years," Crystalex reported. Her voice carried the harmonics of pure mathematics. "Current count indicates consistent messaging on 412 inhabited worlds. The coordination required is unprecedented." "Can you stop it?" demanded the Council security chief, a four-armed Keldon named Vraxon. "We are analyzing the mechanism now. It appears to be using stellar wind harmonics combined with gravitational lensing and quantum entanglement. The technology is within known parameters, but the scale—" Crystalex paused, her crystalline structure pulsing with what might have been admiration. "The scale is magnificent." Rebecca smiled slightly. Magnificent, that was a good word for it. The supreme arbiter of the council, an ancient being whose species name was unpronounceable by human vocal cords, descended from the upper levels. The crowd parted respectfully. The arbiter's multiple eyes focused on Rebecca. "You will explain this immediately," the arbiter commanded. Translation systems rendered the words with undertones of barely controlled fury. "Of course, Supreme Arbiter," Rebecca bowed with perfect diplomatic courtesy. "Earth submitted its formal petition for council membership 40 years ago. We have sent follow-up communications annually. We have followed every protocol in your integration guidelines. We have been patient, but patience without acknowledgement is simply being ignored. So you vandalize the sky. We communicate. The message is clear, non-threatening, and factually accurate. Humanity requests an audience. We have requested it through proper channels for 4 decades. Now we request it in a manner you cannot miss." Rebecca gestured at the window where the aurora continued its display. "We could have done far more with this technology. We chose words instead." The implication hung in the air like the message in the sky above them. Crystalex had been analyzing cosmic phenomena for 3 centuries, and nothing in her extensive experience prepared her for what she witnessed in the data streams flowing through the Science Directorate. The laboratory deep beneath Centrum's surface hummed with activity. Holographic displays showed real-time feeds from 412 worlds. On every single one, the sky carried the same message in perfect, readable script. The mathematical precision required for such coordination made her crystalline structure resonate with frequencies she usually reserved for contemplating the most elegant proofs. "This should not be possible," said her colleague Harmonix, "a being composed of pure energy contained in a magnetic field. The quantum entanglement network alone requires computational power exceeding most planetary defense systems." Crystalex rotated through the satellite specifications that her team had managed to decode. The individual components are unremarkable: standard stellar wind collectors, basic gravitational lensing arrays, quantum communicators using established protocols. Any mid-tier civilization could build one of these satellites. But not 6,000 of them, not coordinated across 200 light-years, not activated simultaneously with microsecond precision. Harmonix pulsed with what might have been respect. The humans did this with the industrial capacity of a single homeworld and 12 colonies. 13 colonies now. Crystalex pulled up recent intelligence reports. They established another settlement in the Kepler chain 3 months ago. Population growth rate exceeds council projections by 300%. A security officer entered the laboratory. It was Vraxen, the four-armed Keldon who served as chief of council security. His multiple hands gestured with agitation as he spoke. "Can you disable the satellites?" "Technically, yes. We could send targeted electromagnetic pulses to each unit." Crystalex created a visual simulation showing the process. However, doing so would require mobilizing assets from at least 20 member species. The satellites are scattered across such a wide area that no single civilization has the resources to reach them all quickly. How long would a coordinated shutdown take? Minimum, 3 weeks, possibly longer if the humans have installed any defensive countermeasures. Vraxen's skin flushed purple, a color indicating extreme frustration in Keldon physiology. 3 weeks of every citizen in council space seeing that message every night. There is another consideration. Crystalex brought up timeline analysis. Earth has been developing rapidly while we ignored them. 18 months ago, they did not have the capability for this operation. They built it from nothing in less than 2 years. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that we have been making an error in our assessment of human technological development. They adapt quickly. They innovate constantly. They take existing technology and apply it in ways we do not anticipate. Crystalex's structure pulsed with colors representing concern. If we disable this network, what will they build next? And will it be as peaceful as writing words in the sky? In another part of Centrum, the inner council gathered in emergency session. The chamber was smaller than the main council hall, reserved for discussions that required discretion. 50 representatives from the most influential species sat in concentric circles around a central speaking platform. The Drawl collective ambassador still looked shaken. Her scales had not returned to their normal iridescence. This is unprecedented. Humans have violated the sovereignty of every world in council space. They wrote words in the sky, countered Plenox, a young representative from the amphibious wavespeaker species. They did not invade our space. They did not threaten our citizens. They asked for a meeting. In a manner designed to cause maximum disruption. In a manner designed to be noticed after 40 years of being invisible. Plenox's skin rippled with patterns that indicated passionate disagreement. Perhaps we should ask ourselves why a species had to resort to such measures to receive basic diplomatic courtesy. An elder from the Hiveborn Assembly spoke through its collective voice. The humans are dangerous. This display proves their capacity for coordinated action on a scale that threatens established order. Or it proves their capacity for patience finally reaching its limit. Plenox stood and moved to the central platform. I have reviewed Earth's petition history. 40 years of proper diplomatic channels. 40 years of following our protocols. 40 years of automated responses telling them to wait. How long did we expect them to wait? Until they were ready for membership, the Drawl ambassador insisted. They colonized 13 systems while we told them they were not ready. They built a merchant fleet. They developed quantum communications. They achieved all the technical benchmarks we claim to require. Plenox gestured at the holographic display showing the Aurora message. And they did this without harming a single being. They could have weaponized this technology. Instead, they made art. The Supreme Arbiter raised one appendage for silence. The question before us is not whether humanity's methods were appropriate. The question is how we respond. Vraxen entered the chamber and bowed respectfully. Supreme Arbiter, The Science Directorate has completed its analysis. The human satellite network is more sophisticated than initially assessed. Disabling it will require 3 weeks minimum and the cooperation of multiple species. 3 weeks, the Draal ambassador's scales flashed with alarm. The message will remain visible for 3 weeks. Unless we negotiate with the humans for voluntary deactivation. Silence fell over the chamber. The word negotiate hung in the air with uncomfortable weight. The Galactic Council did not negotiate with non-member species. The Council set terms. Others accepted them. Except the humans had changed that dynamic. They had created a situation where the Council needed something from Earth. The ability to turn off 6,000 satellites that nobody else could reach in reasonable time. Plenox seized the moment. I propose we grant Earth Provisional Council membership. Immediate effect. In exchange, they deactivate their network and join the galactic community as partners rather than petitioners. That sets a terrible precedent, the Hiveborn representative objected. It suggests that disruptive behavior will be rewarded. It suggests that persistence and capability matter more than blindly following protocols that clearly do not work. Plenox's skin patterns grew more intense. How many other species are we ignoring right now? How many others are we dismissing because they are young or different or because we simply do not want to be bothered with new members? Crystalex appeared via holographic projection. If I may offer scientific perspective, the humans demonstrated something important with this operation. They showed restraint. They showed creativity. They showed technical sophistication combined with strategic thinking. These are precisely the qualities we claim to value in potential members. The debate continued for hours. Conservative voices argued for sanctions and punishment. Progressive voices pushed for recognition and acceptance. The Supreme Arbiter listened to all sides before calling for a vote on Plenox's proposal. When the results appeared on the central display, the chamber fell silent. The vote had passed by a margin of 3 voices. Earth would be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. News traveled fast across the quantum communication networks that connected the galaxy. Within hours of the Council vote, every major civilization knew that Earth had been granted provisional membership. The reactions varied wildly depending on who was asked. On the human colony of New Perth, settlers gathered around public viewing screens to watch Director Howard address the press. The conference room in Geneva was packed with journalists from Earth's various nations and off-world settlements. Howard stood at the podium wearing a simple suit, no military decorations or diplomatic regalia. Just a bureaucrat who had spent most of his career filing paperwork that nobody read. Earth thanks the Galactic Council for finally responding to our petition, he began. His tone was carefully neutral, showing neither triumph nor resentment. We look forward to participating in galactic civilization as equals rather than perpetual applicants. A journalist from the Mars Tribune raised her hand. Director Howard, some are calling Project Painted Sky an act of technological terrorism. How do you respond? I would ask those critics to define terrorism. Did we harm anyone? Did we threaten anyone? Did we destroy property or cause casualties? Howard paused. We wrote words in the sky. We asked for a meeting. The method was unconventional, but the message was simple and honest. After 40 years of conventional methods producing nothing but automated responses, we chose a different approach. Was this approach approved by Earth's government? Every human government with space-faring capability contributed resources to Project Painted Sky. Luna Station, the Martian Industrial Complex, the Jovian shipyards, the Kepler colonies. This was not the work of one nation or one agency. This was humanity deciding collectively that we had waited long enough. On Centrum, Rebecca Ackafer met with Plenox and Crystalex in a small garden that grew plants from 70 different worlds. The air smelled of flowers that had evolved under alien suns, creating fragrances no human had experienced before first contact. "Your speech at the council session was brave," Rebecca said to Plenox. The wave speaker's skin rippled with modest colors. It was logical. The council's treatment of Earth was neither efficient nor fair. Sometimes institutions need external pressure to recognize their own failures. Crystallex's crystalline structure caught the light and scattered it into geometric patterns on the garden path. The satellite network was elegant. From a purely mathematical perspective, the coordination required was beautiful. From a diplomatic perspective, it was terrifying, Rebecca admitted. We gambled everything on the assumption that the Council would see this as creative problem-solving rather than aggression. The line between those interpretations is thinner than most species like to admit. Plenox gestured toward the sky where the aurora had finally faded after 3 days of continuous display. But you chose words over weapons. You chose visibility over violence. That matters. Does it? The conservative faction still wants to sanction Earth. I heard the Drawl ambassador is proposing restrictions on human expansion. The conservative faction always resists change. They proposed similar restrictions when my species achieved space travel. We ignored them and established 17 colonies anyway. Plenox's skin showed colors that Rebecca's translator interpreted as amusement. The Council has many rules. Most of them are suggestions that powerful species follow when convenient. Crystallex pulsed with agreement. The real question is what Earth does next. Provisional membership is not permanent. You have 3 years to demonstrate that humanity deserves full Council status. And how do we demonstrate that? By being yourselves. By showing that the creativity and determination you used to get our attention can be applied to solving galactic problems rather than creating them. Across the galaxy, other civilizations were having similar conversations. On the methane-rich world of Virin Home, Patrol Commander Hillix filed his resignation. He had missed the largest coordinated human operation in history because he assumed humans were just scurrying around aimlessly. His replacement would be someone who understood that underestimating Deathworld species was a career-ending mistake. On the Drawl homeworld, young students studied the technical specifications of the human satellites. The engineering was not revolutionary, but the application was inspired. Several universities announced new programs focused on creative problem-solving using existing technology. The humans had shown that innovation was not always about inventing something new, but about using what existed in unexpected ways. The Hiveborn Assembly remained skeptical, but even they could not ignore what the data showed. Humanity's industrial capacity, resource mobilization, and ability to coordinate complex operations suggested a species that would be either a valuable ally or a dangerous enemy. Better to have them inside the Council structure where their activities could be monitored. In the depths of Centrum's government complex, the Supreme Arbiter met privately with Vraxen. The security chief still looked troubled, his 4 arms gesturing with unusual nervousness. The humans have proven they can coordinate operations we cannot easily counter, Vraxen said. What happens when they decide they want something else? What if next time they make demands instead of requests? The Arbiter's ancient eyes studied the security chief with something like pity. Then, we will have confirmed what many of us already suspect, that we need Earth more than Earth needs us. How can that be? They are one species, we are 847. 847 species that have grown comfortable and complacent. When was the last time any council member did something truly innovative? We refinance trade agreements. We debate cultural exchange programs. We maintain the status quo. The Arbiter gestured at data files showing human expansion rates. Humanity went from nuclear weapons to fusion drives in less than a century. They colonized hostile worlds. They built infrastructure in regions we declared uninhabitable. They solve problems we consider unsolvable. That makes them dangerous. That makes them necessary. The galaxy is changing. New threats emerge. Old alliances decay. We need species that can adapt quickly and think creatively. We need humans, even if accepting them challenges our comfortable assumptions about who deserves to lead galactic civilization. Vraxin considered this in silence. Finally, he asked the question that bothered him most. What if they decide they should be the ones leading? The Arbiter's expression might have been a smile. Then, we will discover whether 847 comfortable species can match one stubborn one. Based on recent evidence, I would not bet against the humans. The satellites remained in position, dormant but ready, a reminder that humanity had learned how to make the galaxy listen. The real question was what Earth would say now that it had everyone's attention. 3 months after the sky spoke with humanity's voice, Earth's first official delegation arrived at Centrum aboard a ship that made several council members reconsider their assumptions about human aesthetics. The vessel was not the utilitarian cargo hauler most expected. Instead, the diplomatic ship Endeavour combined elegant curves with obvious military-grade armor plating. It could dock at a peace conference or fight its way out of an ambush with equal grace. The design philosophy was pure human: hope for the best but prepare for the worst. Rebecca stood at the airlock as the Endeavour connected with Centrum's primary docking ring. Behind her, the delegation assembled. Dr. Amara Okonkwo represented Earth's scientific community, wearing formal robes decorated with equations rendered in silver thread. Captain David Torres wore the dress uniform of the Merchant Guild, looking uncomfortable but determined. Director Howard had come personally, along with representatives from every major human settlement in space. The airlock opened onto a receiving hall where Crystalex and Plenox waited with a small group of council officials. No massive ceremony, no crowds of curious aliens, just quiet acknowledgement that Earth now belonged to the same political structure as 846 other species. "Welcome to Centrum," Plenox said, her skin showing warm colors. "You have caused quite a stir." "We prefer to think of it as making a memorable first impression," Rebecca replied. Crystalex's structure pulsed with geometric patterns. "Dr. Okonkwo, the Science Directorate has requested a consultation with you regarding large-scale infrastructure projects. Your satellite network demonstrated capabilities we would like to explore for civilian applications." Amara blinked in surprise. "You want to hire human engineers?" "We want to learn from them. The Council has not seen genuine innovation in several decades. Your approach to problem-solving is refreshingly direct." Over the following weeks, the human delegation discovered that provisional membership meant actual work rather than ceremonial appearances. Amara found herself in laboratories with crystalline scientists who wanted to understand how humans had achieved such precise coordination across vast distances. The answer was not revolutionary technology, but something simpler and more human. They had talked to each other, constantly. Human ship captains had maintained open communication channels throughout the operation, adjusting positions in real time based on shared information. No central computer, no hive mind, just thousands of individuals choosing to cooperate perfectly. "You trusted every ship to do their part without oversight?" Crystalex asked, her structure resonating with confusion. "We trusted them because we had to. Centralized control across 200 light-years is impossible with current technology, so we built a system that relied on mutual trust and individual competence." Amara pulled up network diagrams showing how human ships had self-organized. Every captain knew the mission. Every crew understood the stakes. They coordinated because they all wanted the same outcome. "This should not work. Individual variants should create cascading errors." "It works because humans are good at making things work when the alternative is failure. We are stubborn like that." Captain Torres had similar experiences in the Trade Regulations Committee. Council trade policy was designed by species that had been in space for thousands of years. Their supply chains were efficient but inflexible. Human merchants operated differently. They adapted routes constantly based on changing conditions. They found profits in markets that established species ignored. They took risks that made conservative traders uncomfortable. You transported live cargo through the frost reaches, a drawl trade representative asked, horrified. Those shipping lanes are considered too dangerous for anything except emergency runs. They are considered dangerous by species that require perfect environmental conditions and cannot tolerate disruption. David shrugged. Humans grew up on a planet that tried to kill us in 100 different ways. We can handle some cosmic radiation and gravity anomalies. But the insurance costs alone would make such routes unprofitable. Unless you are willing to accept some risk in exchange for faster delivery times. We moved luxury goods from the inner worlds to frontier colonies in half the normal time. The profit margin more than covered our costs. The drawl representative made notes with rapidly flashing scales. I need to reconsider our shipping contracts. Director Howard spent his time in the Political Integration Committee, which was as bureaucratic as it sounded. The committee's job was to help provisional members navigate council procedures and prepare for full membership evaluation. What Howard discovered was that most species took decades to understand the labyrinthine council structure. There are 47 different subcommittees just for trade regulation, the committee chair explained. She was a being composed of crystallized sound waves, and her voice carried harmonics of patient resignation. You will need to familiarize yourself with all of them. Or we could propose streamlining the structure to something more efficient, Howard suggested. The committee chair's harmonics shifted to what might have been shock. Reform the council administrative framework. That has not been attempted in 3,000 years. Then you are probably due for an update. Howard pulled out a data pad showing organizational charts he had been developing. Most of these subcommittees have overlapping jurisdictions. You could consolidate them into 12 primary committees without losing functionality. Processing time for legislation would decrease by approximately 60%. You want to reduce bureaucracy. I want to make government work better. That is literally what bureaucracy is supposed to do. Serve the people, not create jobs for bureaucrats. The committee chair studied his proposals in silence. Then her harmonics shifted to something that might have been laughter. You have been a provisional member for 3 months, and you are already proposing to restructure the entire council administration. Is that a problem? It is very human. I will submit your proposals to the appropriate subcommittee. They will probably reject it, but I will submit it anyway. On her final evening before returning to Earth for consultations, Rebecca walked through Centrum's gardens with Plenox. The alien skin showed contemplative colors as they moved between flower beds from different worlds. Has it been what you expected? Plenox asked. I expected more resistance, more hostility from the established species. You frightened them. Species tend to be polite to things that frighten them. Plenox paused beside a flowering plant from her own homeworld. But you also impressed them. The council has grown stagnant. Everyone knows it, but nobody wants to admit it. Then humans arrive with their dangerous ideas about efficiency and innovation and actually making things better. We just want to help. That is what makes you dangerous. You genuinely believe you can improve the galaxy. Plenox's skin rippled with warm colors. Most species join the council to gain access to resources and technology. They maintain the status quo because change is difficult. But humans, you see problems and immediately start proposing solutions. You see inefficiency and want to fix it. You see suffering and feel compelled to help. Is that wrong? It is exactly what the galaxy needs, even if it does not realize it yet. Plenox gestured at the sky where stars glowed in constellations that looked nothing like Earth's night sky. Your species wrote a message in the stars. You forced us to acknowledge you. Now you are writing a different message through your actions. You are showing us what is possible when a species refuses to accept that things have to stay the way they have always been. Rebecca looked up at the alien stars and thought about the satellites still in position throughout Council space, dormant but ready, a reminder that humanity knew how to get attention when necessary. But maybe Plenox was right. Maybe the real message was not the one written in auroras above 400 worlds. Maybe the real message was what came after, the willingness to work, the determination to improve, the stubborn human belief that tomorrow could be better than today if you were willing to put in the effort. What will humanity do for an encore? Plenox asked with obvious amusement. Rebecca smiled. We were thinking of actually participating in galactic civilization. Revolutionary concept. Right. The night sky of Centrum looked peaceful now. No auroras, no messages, just stars and the quiet possibility that the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you finally let humans help.